Hey everyone, okay, so today I'm going to be showing you or telling you what to look for when to buy a foundation and how to buy the perfect foundation. Now, you all know that it's no point going on about where to test the foundation because it really depends, first of all, on what skin you've got showing. Now, if you are exposing a lot of chest, you really need your face and body to match. But if you're just exposing your neck, then obviously you need to match it to your neck. But a bronzing powder can help whether warm up areas of the face that are different colors. Maybe our neck is different color or our chest is a different color. But I'll put the links into other videos that discuss that. This video is more about discussing how to find the perfect foundation and what to look for. When we think of foundation, we think of, oftentimes we think of MAC, we think of NARS, we might think of Dior, we might think of Laura Mercier, or a whole myriad of different companies that have big names. And these are the foundations that we are most aware of. And I'm here to kind of say that those foundations really are not your best bet when it comes to finding the perfect foundation, and I'll explain why, and hopefully you can understand my rationale. The foundations that we see in the high street, they are okay, but what they lack is pigment. The pigment that we see in the foundations that we buy from the high-end stores are approximately 12 to 20% pigment, meaning the rest is water and oils and emollients and preservatives and all the other things. Now, when you look at a professional range and you think the MAC is a professional range or Makeup Forever, etc., what I'm talking about is when you look at makeup brands that are geared towards makeup artists, the pigment levels vary greatly. They also range from, they can range from very, very light, but the bulk of the foundations that makeup artists will use have around about 50% pigment. And that's a massive gap from, say, 15% right the way up to 50%. And the reason being is because they're not as glamorous, we don't hear about them as often because they don't have the big names behind them. But these are the foundations that will work perfectly with our skin, because these are the foundations that last. Now, if you've only got 15% pigment in your foundation and the rest is oils and water and all the other things, then sure, we can prolong our foundation by matching like to like and all the other things. But what we want is a lot of pigment, because with a lot of pigment, we can then work with a product using a very small amount and get great coverage. Also, pigment isn't affected by heat. So we're outside and it's humid and the sun and our foundation is melting. Remember, it's only 15% pigment, so the rest is water and emollients and oils, which are going to melt. But if we've got 50% pigment, pigment doesn't alter, so you can put a jar of pigment in the oven and it's still going to look like pigment. So that's what we need to look for. And the brands that I use, and you rarely see me on these tutorials use MAC makeup unless it's full coverage foundation, which is completely different. You don't see me use a lot of the liquid foundations from higher end brands because they just don't cut it for me in terms of what I need to make somebody's skin look great. And people are often asking, well, you use a lot of makeup, Wayne, why doesn't it look cakey? Because I'm using stuff with really good pigment. I'm able to blend it so it looks like absolute skin, and then I don't have to worry about it sliding around all day long, or when I'm on doing weddings that it's going to disappear before they've even said their vows. I don't want any of that. I want to be in there, do it, and then leave and go home. So the foundations that I really like are, of course, MAC Full Coverage Foundation, because it's very, very full coverage. We can shear it down to nothing, but it's brands like MAC Pro, it's brands like Kett, it's brands like RCMA and Mud foundations. All of these contain more pigment than your standard foundations, which means they go on smoother. They are less prone to breaking down and becoming an oily mess before a couple of hours is done. And the best thing about them is that they are relatively inexpensive compared to the high-end foundations. When you have something with a lot of pigment in, you need to use less product. And the less product that we use, the more natural our skin is going to look. So we're able to take a full coverage foundation like something from RCMA, and RCMA do these tiny little wheels, so you get different colors. Now we can use a small amount and apply it to our face and blend it in and have it look like skin, but have it cover our skin. Have it HD compatible if you're working in that medium, but as opposed to layering on lots and lots of creams or lots and lots of liquid products that layer up on the skin, whereas the high pigment products don't, because we can buff them into the skin and smooth them out. And oftentimes when we see a very heavy makeup application, it's less to do with the product and more to do with the person behind it who's slapping it on. So what I'm saying to you is, when you're looking to find your perfect foundation, what you need to be looking for are brands that perhaps aren't as well known, but brands that have a consistent track record of making foundations that have a high percentage of pigment. And the cosmetic industry seems to think that we can't handle this, because if the product contains too much pigment, we will have trouble putting it on. I completely and 100% disagree. I think that we are able to put it on absolutely perfectly. I just think that it's not as marketable. It doesn't come in those shiny bottles. It doesn't come with the big names on it. But at the end of the day, once you've got that bottle and it costs you a fortune, you put it on your face, nobody knows what it is. Nobody knows what makeup you've got on your skin, what foundation you're wearing, because we don't see the name all over our skin. So worry less about the name and look for pigment. In the description bar below are links, etc., to products that contain a high percentage of pigment that are absolutely compatible for all skin types, from dry to sensitive to oily. And the best thing about the professional brands is that they almost never contain fragrance, which means there is a much less chance of you being irritated by them and having a skin reaction, because they don't contain the irritating fragrance that oftentimes the high-end brands do. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.